Gilbert-K show welcomes the legendary Baz Irvine, BAFTA and ASC-nominated cinematographer of the Oscar-winning six-shooter. From the haunting depths of Apple TV Plus's Silo to the raw intensity of Paramount Plus's Mobland, Baz takes us through the craft, pressure, and passion behind the lens. Let's welcome Baz Irvine.
Hey Buzz, a pleasure to have you on the show. Before we dive in, what clip are we going to watch or listen to?
I think we should watch a clip from episode 1 of Silo of the second season, which I'm very proud of, where Rebecca Ferguson's character Juliet tries to build a bridge to span the big Silo rotunda in the dark, in the scary dark, without knowing what's going to happen and what's beneath her, and she falls into the abyss. We think to her death, but she doesn't. So I won't spoil the last bit.
Okay, let's watch it or listen to it.
For as long as we can remember, everyone that goes outside is killed by the dangerous toxins of an unsafe world. Juliet Nichols asked to go out. She was a fighter.
Warning, oxygen levels low.
But she died a hero to the Silo.
She might be out there somewhere, still alive.
Okay, great. Let's move on to our first segment, Roots, Reels, and Recognition. What sparked your first connection to storytelling through images?
I think it's really interesting. I think for me, it was an early exposure, a kind of saturation of imagery from two completely different sources. I grew up in Belfast during the Troubles, which was, a dark time in our history, and was exposed to, bombs going off every night on the news, and it was a pretty hectic, scary time. But when you're a kid, you don't perceive it that way. But in the summer holidays, I went from Belfast to New York, where my father lived. My father moved there in the 70s, and he worked in various guises in the music industry. So I was going on the road with him from like a really early age. And, kind of at a very young, very impressionable age, getting this sort of like avalanche of imagery of new states and freeways and motels and bands and you know stuff that probably I shouldn't have been seeing at my tender age. And I
Yeah.
think that kind of duality of growing up in Northern Ireland, which had like so many amazing things about my childhood there, but the kind of darker edge to that, and then this American dream
Mhm.
fueled my I think just a kind of a obsession with imagery, and also an interest in music that led to film and everything else, and literature, but I would say that's where that's where it all started.
So you had, when you were a kid, you had a camera, 35 millimeter or something?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my grandfather had been a kind of a really obsessive photographer in a time when not a lot of people had film cameras. And I only
Yes.
really started to discover this as I got a little bit older. And my dad was a keen photographer. So yeah, I definitely, it felt very normal to walk around. I can sort of remember walking around with a film camera from about the age of 12 or 13, and
Mhm.
it was just always there. So whether I had a very keen sense of what how to take photographs for composition, I probably didn't, but it just felt like an extension of who I was.
Yeah.
um and also quite a useful prop to put a barrier between yourself and
Yeah.
what's out there.
What's
It's
happening?
kind of
Yeah.
yeah, you can hide behind it, and I think I did as a
Yeah.
kid. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. And how did winning a place on Lord Putnam's prestigious job fit course shape your entry into world of film?
I think the point about that course was it was set up at a time when London was it was a very white sort of not so much middle class, but very a lot of nepotism. The industry really didn't exist beyond London. In Belfast now, there's a thriving film industry. So to get on that course
Hmm.
meant that I could leave Belfast and get my foot in the door with the name of him behind it and with funding, unusually, reasonable funding for the course that enabled me to become a trainee on really, I mean, incredible films from the minute I arrived in London, and
Yeah.
also to study at the National Film School as well, and at the Central London Polytechnic, which is funny, where Seamus McGarvey went to, and I mean, it meant everything, Gilbert, because without that, I
Yeah.
didn't. I felt hopeless, like there was no outlet, that it was never going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, that's great. So you've worked on classics like The Full Monty and The Warzone. What was it like learning under industry giants like Barry Ackroyd and Seamus McCarvey?
Um, I think it's always strange when you think back to those times, because whenever you're working as an assistant, that's the thing that you're obsessed with, and it's very hard to, like, if I had if I could transport myself back in a time machine. Not just Barry and Seamus, but there's other cinematographers. I could have just studied their lighting a bit more. I think that so. What I would say about Seamus and Barry was, when I was just starting to think about images, Seamus, well, was a great friend, and we just like had
Mhm.
the most incredible hijinks together. And but I think I could see that he had such a fine sense of lighting and being an
Mhm.
artist. And I think with Barry, he had come from a documentary background, and his first foray into film was with Ken Loach. And I was lucky to be there at the on the early days of his work with Ken. So Barry was like pragmatic. He had a documentary background, and he had this incredible sense of naturalism and how to use real light, and also just this kind of incredible interest in the world. And he took me not just on drama, but he took me as an assistant around the world on these absolutely insane documentaries, where we would go to, like, stay with a witch doctor on the border of Swaziland, or learn about the history of explosive devices. I traveling, like, through Norway and America, and it did amazing Oscar-winning documentary about Anne Frank with Barry, which was like a journey through Europe, and the concentration camps, and so, like, what I learned from Barry was like life.
Mhm. That's amazing. That's amazing. Your earlier work includes Relativity, which won at Berlin, and Six Shooter was snagged an Oscar. Did you feel a turning point happening that early in your career?
Um, it's sort of interesting. Like, I definitely felt a keen sense that things were happening for me, and not that long after Six Shooter, because back then there was a very different demographic, and we weren't really shooting TV. We were all of us were trying to shoot movies, and one of the first movies that I ended up shooting was a working title film called Mr. Bean's Holiday, and
Yeah.
which was possibly not the sort of work that I wanted to do, but it was an incredible chance to do an incredible project in France, and it was kind of like homage. It was like a
Mhm.
love letter to cinema. But after that, I got offered a lot of comedies, and although I think I was presented with an opportunity, for whatever reason, I think I felt myself sliding back into commercials,
Oh,
which was a
yeah.
very lucrative and not so much easy, but it was a great, exciting life of just always being on the road, always traveling around Europe and the world. And I think that tapped into my early days with my dad on the road in America. And maybe I just wasn't ready at that point to embrace drama, you know, in a way that I feel like now, the last decade, where I kind of almost like stepped away from the limelight a bit and learnt my craft, and then grew up a bit, learned a
Yeah.
little bit more about life, and then came back into drama. And I think it served me well. So I would say that I was a early starter but late developer, if that's not an oxymoron or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's great. So before we get into Silo and Mobland, tell us about your BAFTA nomination. What did that moment mean for you as an artist?
Well, I was trying to think actually when you saw the question. I don't know if
Yeah.
I mean, I got like, so there's nominations for the jobs you're on, and then there's personal nominations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, I actually won a BAFTA for a documentary that I'd shot so for factual photography about
Yeah.
a mining disaster in that had happened in Wales, in called the Aberfan disaster, and I won that. And then I also had a BAFTA nomination for a drama that I'd done called The Pembrokeshire Murders.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's like, you know, those things are certainly milestones, but I feel like, I'm just as bad at not believing in myself, or feeling I have imposter syndrome, just like
Yeah.
the next person. So I think that certainly they were great accolades, but um, I guess the best way to put it is, you know you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Because it's not just your friends saying you're doing something well. You at least, that when you get a nomination, you feel that there are other people out there who you don't know who are engaging with the work. And I
Yeah.
think, that's always the thing, I think, that makes you feel that you're on the right track.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, we're going to take a break right now. We're going to play a game. It's called This or That, and it's a rapid fire game. In this game, you'll need to choose one or two options as quickly as possible. Are
Okay.
you ready, Bas?
I am utterly terrified, but yes, I am ready.
Okay, I'll make sure they're not hard questions. Okay, Belfast Energy or London Hustle?
Belfast Energy.
Film reels or digital sensors?
Oh, film reels, of course.
BAFTA night or ASC red carpet?
Oh, ASC red carpet.
Silo sci-fi shadows or Mobland's gritty glow?
Silo sci-fi shadows. You were trying to see if I could just say that. That's a lot of alliteration there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Tongue twister.
Yeah.
Camera rig or handheld freedom?
Uh, Handheld freedom.
Handheld freedom. Directorial vision or collaborative chaos?
Oh, I would say I've a collaborative chaos. I've experienced a lot.
Story over style or style over story?
Story over style. Come on.
Natural lighting or stylized setups?
Natural lighting.
Natural
Always the
lighting.
best.
Uh,
Always the best.
Travel shoots or studio control?
I used to say the other, but now I would say studio control.
5 a.m. call time or midnight magic hour?
5 a.m. call time.
Okay, great.
I'm better in the mornings. I'm in
Yeah, me
bed
too,
by 10.
actually.
I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, Gilbert. I'm such a
Yeah, same
lightweight these
here.
days. Yeah. Okay.
Same here. Yeah, so let's move on to the next segment. It's mastery behind the lens. When you
Okay.
step into a new project, what's your first instant light, mood, or composition?
I think it's a little bit of everything, obviously. I think that there's usually one of those things. I think when you read a script, there's the mood, there's
Mhm.
something about it. If whatever attracts you to a project, I think, and I think that composition comes later. Sometimes composition comes really late, only when you start shooting. But I think nowadays with all of the various apps we have, when you
Yeah.
go on your initial director scouts and recce's, you start to frame up, and I think you get a sense of how things are going to look, or how at least frame sizes and lenses. I think lighting is. I think lighting's probably my obsession. So I'm always thinking. The thing is, any young cinematographer, anybody, it's like you can't ever learn more than just look at what's around you. You know, even when I'm sitting here now, I've managed to organize my hotel windows so I have one single pane of glass. I've got the shutters closed so that I know I've got a single source of light. And
Wow.
you know, but it's like also I just, if I start turning on lights around the room, it just won't look good. So always think about lighting, and I think that I think that's also because I was lucky to have enough of my career working
Mm,
with film that I still feel like an old school film DOP. That
yeah.
still kind of is the way I think. So yeah, so a bit of everything, but at different stages.
Hmm. That's great. So let's dive into Silo season two. Season two looked incredible. What visual language did you want to establish, especially in the more confined underground spaces?
I think one of the briefs that well, certainly myself and Apple and the producers and my director Michael Dinner, like we talked about, was um, you start to sort of talk about loose ideas, and I think that things like we wanted it to be a bit more visceral in season one. We wanted it to be like a bit more immersive, handheld. Um, I was obsessed by making the silo a real living part of, not a set, not
Mhm.
something you turn up to every day, but you really want the audience to believe 100% that you're, in this subterranean chamber, um that's strange and terrifying, and although it offers on one level sanctuary, it also offers many terrors hidden in the depths.
Yeah.
And I loved anyway the idea of the inverted, high rise building, and it tapped into like many things that I loved, like writers like J.G. Ballard, and
Hmm.
he wrote this great book called High Rise, and other books that I love. So, for me, it was just the most incredible chance to work with imagery that I knew that, like, I just had an empathy with,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think if I had to just like sum it up, I'd say wanted to really make season two feel very real
Hmm.
from the outset. That was probably our first instinct.
Hmm. That's great. You were nominated for an ASC award in 2025 for Silo. What specific challenges on that season tested you the most as a cinematographer?
Think, I mean, I think. First of all, the scale of the show, when you first walk on the set, the big silo set,
Yeah.
it is pretty incredible. You sort of have to pinch yourself and go, my God, this is really like a dream. So the scale of everything, I think the idea that even though we had very relatively small amount of like set, so
Yeah.
we really had to, when we looked up and down, it was VFX. So to really understand the power of the camera, what it could do without having something to look at, is quite a skill. It really took me a while to understand that. But I
Hmm.
think specifically episode one was like a silent movie.
Yeah.
It's very sparse, only a little bit of dialogue in the flashback sequences, and a lot of action, and underwater, falls, uh, it just on a technical level, it
Hmm.
was like the most complicated thing I'd ever done. I definitely felt that, well, we did a lot of testing and, ideas. I mean, the great thing about a show of that size is you you are allowed to go down some rabbit holes and sort of,
Yeah.
we try to work on an idea that, and it doesn't work, but you learned that didn't work, so you can go in another direction.
Yeah.
So many challenges, but I think the biggest one was just trying to tell the first episode and keep it like a silent film. So it was all about the imagery. There
Hmm.
was no dialogue to drive the story forward. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. Um, so in Mobland, you shift into a grittier, noir, tinged crime world. How did your creative approach evolve from the sleek dystopia of Silo to the raw streets of Mobland?
Um, I think that I took a little bit of a sabbatical after Silo because it was such a long stint in my life, and did some family stuff. And um so when I wanted to work again, I think that what's really important is, like, I felt like I'd been in this subterranean
Yeah.
existence for so long, and without any natural light. There is no sun in the silo.
Mm.
um so it was just the most like perfect thing to move into a contemporary urban world where you could just I could exercise and flex different
Yeah.
muscles, and and which is really important as well, and also just do something completely different, and also, on another level,
Mm.
something that you do have to think about as a director of photography, or if you work in the film industry. I'd had a great chance to work with Apple, who are an amazing company, and then
Mm.
Paramount come on the scene with another show. And hey, that's the dream. You get to
Yeah.
work with these great, streamers who are actually just making incredible content. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was a really perfect thing to get offered. I think to do another dystopian future, um
Yeah.
drama might have, because I'd already done a thing called Invasion before, which
Yeah, that's
which
true.
was which had similar,
Yeah.
similar themes and, tropes. And so yeah, so that was that was how, Mobland came up. It seemed like a no brainer to try that, to go in that direction.
Yeah. That's great. So can you share a moment from Mobland that surprised you on set? Something that unplanned that turned into a cinematic gold.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about that. Like, obviously actors will always surprise you with performances, and
Yeah.
you can read it, you can read a script, and then you get on set and you've got Helen Mirren and Pierce Brosnan and Tom Hardy and Paddy Considine and so many other great. So that, that's always a surprise, but I think that happens a lot. For me, like, I had a little simple thing where, in one of the episodes, so Tom Hardy's character Harry's, his wife, played by this actress Joanna Froggatt, had to sort of surreptitiously leave the house and come down this sort of beautiful country lane in the Cotswolds, which is this very sort of bucolic area of England outside London. And it was my first shoot day, and we were actually shooting inside a pub, and I remember seeing that the sun had come out, and it was
Yeah.
just like streaming down this road, as backlit. It's like, guys, come on, let's go. We got to get the camera. We got to. So we were on steady cam, and we went out, and Joanna disappeared around the corner, and we had some extras, and a guy and a horse and a car, whatever, and she came walking around, and we had like some atmos, which just to create some, like, smoke, and so the sun was just, and it was beautiful. It wasn't over the top, but it was
Yeah.
just the perfect thing. Then that shot needed a couple of shots to go before it. And later down the schedule, I remember we're shooting in winter, so like, having sun was very rare. I had to get this shot of her leaving the house. That would be the shot that would precede this, the one I
Yeah.
I just talked about. And I sort of realized that if I left it later in the day, the sun was going to come through this tree, but there was no leaves, so it was just this
Yeah.
beautiful dappled light. And I sort of once again managed to get that shot, and she came out and she came towards this fence, and the camera did this little pivot crane
Yeah.
move around, and it doesn't sound like much, but those little moments of serendipity, which do involve planning, but are also just where you use the sun.
Yeah.
The most magical thing you can do as a cinematographer is use the sun, and that's all effectively what we all
Yes.
aspire to be able to manipulate. And so for me, that was probably the best moments.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
You've worked with directors like Ken Loach and Martin McDonough. What's the key to a successful director-DOP relationship?
Um, oh, I think the funny thing is, like, you don't necessarily have to like a director. I mean, you don't know, but it's true. You're not always best friends. I'd
Yeah.
say, like, on a very basic level, you you want it to be a collaboration. You want to know that you kind of are able to respect each other and be able, to proffer ideas. You don't want to
Yeah.
be like a didactic one-way thing where you're just rocking up every day to just turn the camera on and point it where the director wants. I think you look. There's many great stories of cinematographers and directors who hated each other and came up with some of the most marvels
Yeah.
of like 20th century movies and 21st century. And I think that, for me, as I get older, I don't think I can deal with all the bullshit, and just like I can't, I can't have somebody shouting at me. I can't have somebody like angry. You just, like at the minute I'm working with this lovely director, and it's just a joy to be able to be friends and
Yeah.
get on. It sounds like such an obvious thing, but I think respect. It's like if you don't feel the director respects you, then it's very hard to move forward.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'd
So,
say.
so do you pick your project based on the director or
I wish, do you know what? Like, I wish, I kind of wonder out there in the higher stratosphere of where
yeah.
the stars shine bright, and these like the incredible cinematographers like Roger Deakins and
Yeah.
Emmanuel Lubetsky all kind of glitter. I do feel that those guys probably do choose their projects,
Got it.
and I think that I there's a kind of socio-economic prerogative
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. The reality is we're the same as everybody else. I think that I definitely wouldn't shoot something I didn't like.
Yeah.
I think that I am, as I get more and more experienced and hopefully do good work, I have more chance to choose the things I like. And I think that, it all starts with the script. Look, and there's also some great directors out there. So,
Yeah.
watch this space. I hope
Yeah.
moving forward, like but it's also about timing, Gilbert. The film
Yeah.
industry is really weird. You can do a job that lasts from February to July, and that
Yeah.
isn't the year, but it rules you out of everything else
Yeah.
that comes along, because just um projects get delayed, shoots notoriously get pushed back.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of luck and happenstance that occurs as well.
Yeah. Great. Great.
Fingers crossed.
Okay. In a world saturated with
Oh, by
flashy
the way,
visual,
I am available from October. Any
yeah.
directors who tuning in, I will be available from October. Thank you. To 2025.
2025. Uh, we'll post it on all social media.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
in a visual saturated with flashy visuals, how do you ensure your cinematography still serves the soul of the story?
think, you know, I I'm not worried about how flashy visuals are, and sometimes flashy visuals are beautiful. And I think you know the stuff that impresses me when it comes to cinematography is always what serves the story, what was perfect, what was right. And you know, I think that I always feel that's what I try to stay true to. And I think that for instance, as an example, Roger Deakins shot this beautiful film Prisoners a few years ago with Denis Villeneuve directing, and the choices he made, the lighting, the composition, framing, the camera movement. It's just when you watch it, you know you're just watching something special that's just right.
Yeah.
And it's like a masterclass in understatement. And but also like I also love, like, I'm sort of starting to get through the new season of Severance, and I also love the kind of madness of the first episode and the
Yeah.
motion control work. That's just, it's brilliant. Um, so I think you just got to be honest and like not feel that you need to show off as a cinematographer.
Hmm.
Just study the classics and
Yeah.
have faith that sometimes the most incredible imagery is just the simplest.
Yeah. Yeah. Great answer. So before we move on to the last segment, we're gonna take a break and play a game.
Oh, another quiz, another
Last
game, a
one.
game.
Last one. I promise.
Was the last one a game? I'm not sure if I could think of it as a game. Okay, I'm going to treat this one as a game. Okay,
Yeah, it is a
okay,
game. It's true or
okay.
false, and
Oh,
time to test some quirky facts about your career and life. Are you ready, Buzz?
I'm so ready. I can't bear it.
Okay, true or false? You were nominated for your first BAFTA before turning 30.
False.
That's correct. True or false? You shot part of Mobland using only car headlights.
False.
True or false? Silo was originally pitched as a feature film.
True? No idea.
Yeah.
Gilbert, what are you doing to me? Okay.
You want true or false? You once operated a camera on a Ken Loach scene with no rehearsals.
I never operated because I was always a camera assistant. Somebody else did, so it's false.
It's false. Six Shooter was filmed in just 5 days.
True?
Yeah, it's true. You've worked in both Iceland and South Korea.
False. I've been to Iceland. I've never been to South Korea. I want to go to South Korea.
That's
Okay,
it. That's your
but
next project.
yeah, yeah.
You storyboard every frame before a shoot.
No. Action sequences, I try to, but no.
True or false? You still shoot short films to stay creatively fresh. False. Mobland is your first collaboration with Paramount Plus.
Yes, that is true.
You're planning to direct your own feature soon.
If I say false, then I can't say false. It could be true, but I
Yeah.
don't know it yet.
Okay.
It could be
okay.
true. Let's make it true. Let's make it come real.
Yeah, let's put it out to the universe.
Yeah, let's put it out. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, our last segment: legacy, learning, and looking ahead. What's your biggest piece of advice for emerging cinematographers navigating today's hybrid landscape of film, TV, and streaming?
Oh God, I mean, it is very tough at the minute, Gilbert. I do think when I started out shooting film, there was a certain enigmatic, mysterious quality to what we did that did make it a little bit elitist and quite a hard thing to aspire to be good at, whether that was true or not. I think nowadays it's like the ability to capture imagery is so prevalent at every level. From the minute a kid can pick up a device, they're recording, they're shooting. So I think it's tough. I think that advice. I think it's just a simple bit of advice. It's not a sprint. It's a
Mhm.
marathon, and you know, I know that I've been the worst, the guiltiest person at like looking like once you start doing the comparison test, you will always end up in trouble because you will always see somebody who's doing a little bit better, who's won their first reward,
Yeah.
and you will always feel that you are, somehow, you're not doing your best work, or you're not pop. It's just a tough industry to get momentum
Hmm.
in. So, and also I think be kind to yourself. One of the things I do, which is one of the things I love doing, is if
Yeah.
I'm having a really shitty Monday where the phone's not ringing and I haven't worked for weeks, and I know I should be calling some people, or hustling or speaking to my agent, I just go to the cinema and I buy myself a nice lunch, and I just be kind to yourself, because you can't always operate at the highest level,
Yeah.
and everybody goes through fallow periods. So like, just be kind to yourself and don't look over your shoulder.
Yeah. That's a great tip. Um,
Mhm.
are there any habits or rituals you follow before stepping on set that keep you creatively sharp?
The only absolute 100% ritual that I do is cut my hair. Always get a nice haircut before
Okay.
starting to shoot. And also think a lot about socks, because these days cinematographers tend to sit a lot on these like high stools, and
Yeah.
you expose a lot of your lower leg. So it's like always have strong socks. Like I've got some pretty good, like strong
Yeah.
cut,
Yeah.
like make a statement with your socks and
Yeah.
get a haircut. But you know, I mean, I'm sort of being serious, because I do get a haircut before.
Yeah.
I think you just try to like put on a new coat for every show. Like think
Yeah.
about, try not to be like, don't be crippled by bad decisions in the past.
Yeah.
Everything,
Yeah.
it's a new project.
Start fresh,
Just
basically.
try to be free, try to be fresh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Open mind,
Yeah.
and your best work will come.
Yeah. That's a great tip. With so many accolades under your belt, from Oscar-winning shorts to ASC and BAFTA nods, what's next? Any dream
I mean,
project or story genre still on your
I,
list?
well, I am actually working again with Paramount at the minute. So I'm doing a show called The Agency,
Hmm.
which is about sort of CIA,
Yeah. Yeah.
CIA,
Yeah.
based in London. So it's a kind of worldwide project. And what I love about it is I've always wanted to do a sort of more political
Yeah.
um, thriller that's about surveillance, and sort of taps into that sort of great iconography of 70s movies like The Conversation and things. And um, I, so I'm kind of doing a bit of a dream project at the minute. I haven't started filming yet, but I'm
Yeah.
prepping, and I'm very lucky. I'm getting to shoot in Morocco, and
Cool.
we're going to be shooting more in London later in the summer. I think I do love that kind of project. I suppose what I'd really love to do is something that's a bit more heightened,
Yeah.
like my favorite films of the last sort of few years. I mean, it's so weird, like, but I love something like La La Land. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
love, like, I love a kind of homage to genres and to the movies, and that. Like, I'm really loving the Apple show, the studio at the minute, and
Yeah.
even
Very
from,
funny.
and also from a cinematography point of view, they've done some brilliant, like it moves and camera moves, and but still serve the story really well. So
Yeah.
you know what, I'm really keen to just keep trying out new things,
Yeah.
and who knows what door will open.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah. I'm
Excellent.
available. I mean, I'm not available right now, but
Yeah,
very,
yeah,
very soon.
very soon. So, what legacy do you hope to leave for the next generation of visual storytellers?
I think the legacy is for other people. I mean, I can only do, I think, it's not so much legacy. Like, my dream, it's like,
Yeah,
because I'm quite a modest person. It would just be that somebody references my work, or somebody liked something I did, or I inspired somebody to get into cinematography. I think I've got many years left where I would hope to leave a body of work that
yeah,
people like and find interest in. I hope that my legacy, if even saying that sounds ridiculous, would be that nobody felt that I hate to be uh, like, I like to serve the project. So,
mhm,
whereas some cinematographers have a particular trick or a gag or a specific style that they tend to just lean into, I really feel that if you looked at my work, you would find you'd really see a kind of variety of references, imagery,
mhm.
obsessions with certain things. I like to just, I just like to hope that somebody out there wants to watch something that I did, and
Yeah,
that would feel like enough. I think a legacy is a very heavy burden to feel that you need to create, because I don't think that a legacy is for the future, and it can only
yeah,
be you can only be true to yourself in the here and now, and
yeah,
whatever happens happens.
yeah. Great. Um, and finally, what's one thing you wish someone has told you when you first picked up your camera?
I mean, I sort of think I touched on it earlier about that, that sense of like, if seeing your, don't define your career ahead of you. It's a freelance, turbulent world. We have
Yeah,
just come through strikes. We've come through COVID. The terrible fires in LA, but also just terrible things happening around the world. You can't control the industry. You can't control the output of the industry, the obsessions of the industry, the trends, the quirks, the fashions, the fads. All you can do is your own thing, and nothing in this industry will happen at the pace you want it to happen at.
yeah,
When you start thinking about the year you're going to have, you're like, oh yeah, I'll be great. I'll do
yeah,
this project, and then I'll move on, and then I'll have got two credit. That will never happen.
yeah,
So enjoy the ride. It's just as simple as that. Like, live in the moment, enjoy the ride, and don't look over your shoulder too much. Just, have belief and faith and passion
hmm.
in what you're trying to do. That's all you can do really, because
That's true.
and try to get better, I mean,
Yeah,
and really look at the people that inspire you. I sometimes feel like when I was a kid, I used to just live in movie theaters, and I watched all the classics, and I remember like watching films that I didn't even really like that much, like McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
yeah,
Sorry, did I say that? Well, you know what I mean. I just mean that there was
yeah,
so
yeah. I know
so
what's
many
meant.
indulgent '70s films, but they were
Yeah,
all like these great. They were indulgent, and you just learnt. There was like this beautiful slowness to stuff that you don't really see now. So I think that, like, try and just let yourself. You can never learn everything,
yeah,
but don't ever stop giving yourself time to learn,
yeah,
because watching stuff, you just always pick up something. And I think it's just and I know this is such a, like, a modern mantra buzzword, but you really have to think about your own mental health, and
yeah,
just always be kind to yourself, and just don't set unrealistic targets, and
yeah.
things that you can't fulfill. Just enjoy the ride.
That's true. Great tip. How can our audience connect with you?
They can, if you're in Kensington in London now, you can come and hang out in my hotel room. Uh, as you can see, as the bathroom is here and the bed is there, this strange four poster thing that I don't know how to get into. I think that I mean, look, I'm on it. I'm not, I don't do too many social media things, but
Yeah,
I'm quite active on Instagram, um, and I'm there as Baz.Irvine.DOP, which
yeah,
is probably quite an easy one to find. And I also have a separate um, stills. I just bought myself a Hasselblad
yeah.
medium format digital camera last year, so I've got another thing called Hasselbaz, so you can look me up in that. And feel anybody can feel free to message me. I'm going to be actually coming to LA in a couple of weeks to
Yeah,
do a Q&A regarding Silo for the ASC. I'm not sure if that's like an open house, but I think there's a chance to get tickets for that maybe.
yeah, yeah,
I think that's on the Thursday, the 13th, 12th, 13th of June. But yeah, I think reaching out through Instagram
yeah.
is good. And yeah, I mean, I would always try and answer a question if I can, and but or just accost me in the street. Just, don't ask me for money, but you might get a decent joke out of me.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's great. That's great. Thank you, Buzz. So we're nearing the end of the show. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching. Buzz Irvine, everyone. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.